The fluorescent lights hummed overhead as Darius Chen adjusted his glasses and stared at the blueprint spread across his cluttered desk. Around him, the engineering department of Meridian Motors buzzed with the usual Monday morning chaos: coffee brewing, keyboards clicking, and the distant sound of his colleagues discussing weekend plans. But for Darius, Monday meant another week of being invisible. "Chen, got a minute?" The voice belonged to Marcus Webb, his direct supervisor, whose perpetual scowl seemed permanently etched into his weathered face. Darius looked up from his latest design, a revolutionary hybrid combustion system that could reduce emissions by 40% while maintaining peak performance. "Of course, Mr. Webb." Darius carefully rolled up his blueprints, tucking them into his desk drawer like precious secrets. Webb's office smelled of stale cigarettes and disappointment. The older man settled behind his imposing desk, fingers drumming impatiently on a stack of reports. "The board meeting's Thursday. They want progress reports on the Green Initiative project. What have you got for me?" Darius's heart raced. This was his moment. "Actually, I've been working on something groundbreaking. A hybrid engine design that combines traditional combustion with an innovative regenerative system. The preliminary calculations show—" "Hold on there, hotshot." Webb raised a hand, his expression souring further. "Since when are you qualified to redesign our entire engine architecture? You've been here, 3 years? Some of these guys have been building engines since before you were born." He paused, his eyes narrowing. "Maybe where you come from things work differently, but here in America, we value experience over fancy theories." The familiar sting of dismissal washed over Darius, made sharper by the barely concealed prejudice in Webb's tone. He'd earned his mechanical engineering degree from MIT, graduating summa cum laude, but somehow his credentials never seemed to matter here. The fact that he was born in Ohio seemed irrelevant to people who saw his surname and made assumptions. "I understand your concerns, but if you just look at the numbers on paper don't mean squat until they're proven in the real world." Webb leaned back in his chair, studying Darius with barely concealed irritation. "Why don't you stick to the component analysis I assigned you last month? Leave the big picture stuff to the senior engineers who actually understand American automotive standards." As Darius walked back to his desk, his cheeks burned with frustration. 3 years of this. 3 years of watching his ideas get buried under layers of corporate hierarchy and thinly veiled prejudice. He caught snippets of conversation from the nearby cubicles. Rick and Tom discussing their weekend fishing trip, completely ignoring his presence as he passed. "Did you see Chen's face when Webb shut him down again?" Rick's voice carried farther than he probably intended. "Poor guy thinks he's the next Henry Ford," Tom replied with a chuckle. "Maybe he should stick to what his people are good at, manufacturing, not designing. Someone should tell him this isn't some college lab experiment." "Yeah, these foreign engineers think they know better than guys who've been building American cars for decades," Rick added with a sneer. "Just because he's got some fancy degree doesn't mean he understands real engineering." Darius clenched his fists but kept walking. The casual racism hurt more than the professional dismissal. These people didn't even know him, yet they'd decided he didn't belong based on his name and appearance. Let them underestimate him. He had work to do. That evening, long after the office had emptied, Darius remained at his desk under the harsh glow of his computer screen. He'd been secretly developing his engine design for months, using every spare moment to refine the calculations, test different configurations, and model performance outcomes. The hybrid system was elegant in its simplicity. It captured waste heat from traditional combustion and converted it into supplementary power through a series of thermoelectric generators he designed himself. Week after week he worked in solitude. While his colleagues enjoyed their lunch breaks, Darius sketched components. While they left promptly at 5, he stayed until midnight, fine-tuning specifications. The design evolved from concept to detailed engineering drawings to a complete technical manual that would revolutionize automotive efficiency. The breakthrough came on a rainy Thursday evening in November. Darius had finally solved the thermal regulation problem that had been plaguing his design for weeks. The solution was so obvious in hindsight that he laughed out loud in the empty office, his voice echoing off the walls. His engine wouldn't just reduce emissions. It would be 30% more fuel efficient than anything currently in production. "This is it," he whispered to himself, staring at the completed schematics. "This changes everything." But as he prepared to present his work to Webb the next morning, doubt crept in. What if they dismissed him again? What if they claimed his design was impractical? Worse, what if they simply ignored him entirely? Friday morning arrived with the usual office commotion, but something felt different. There was an electricity in the air, excited whispers echoing through the cubicles. Darius arrived to find his colleagues clustered around Tom's desk, examining what appeared to be technical drawings. "Incredible work, Tom," Rick was saying. "This hybrid system is pure genius. The board's going to love this." Darius's blood turned to ice as he recognized the familiar curves and specifications spread across Tom's desk. Those were his designs, his calculations, his revolutionary engine. "Thanks, guys," Tom replied, beaming with pride. "I've been working on it for months. Wanted to make sure it was perfect before presenting it to management." The room spun around Darius as the full scope of the betrayal hit him. Someone had accessed his desk, stolen his work, and was now claiming credit for his life's work. He thought back to all those late nights, all those weekends spent perfecting every detail. The security cameras would show him working alone, but his designs were now branded with Tom's name. Webb appeared, striding through the department with uncharacteristic enthusiasm. "Mitchell, heard you've got something special for the board meeting. Let's see what you've cooked up." Tom straightened his tie, clearly savoring the attention. "I think you'll be impressed, Mr. Webb. This could put Meridian Motors at the forefront of green automotive technology." As Webb examined the stolen designs, his eyebrows rose with genuine surprise. "This is actually quite impressive, Tom. The thermal efficiency calculations alone. Where did you learn to do this level of thermodynamic analysis?" Tom's confident facade flickered for just a moment. "Well, I've been studying advanced engineering techniques in my spare time, taking some online courses." Darius felt something crack inside his chest. Not just anger, though that burned hot and fierce, but something deeper. A fundamental understanding that he could no longer remain silent. His career, his integrity, his very identity as an engineer were on the line. "That's interesting, Tom," Darius said, his voice cutting through the excited chatter. The group turned to look at him, surprise evident on their faces. "Could you explain the regenerative thermal coupling system you've designed?" Tom's face paled slightly. "Well, the system uses heat recovery to... Specifically, could you walk us through the calculation for the thermoelectric generator efficiency? I'm particularly curious about how you solved the thermal regulation problem." Well, that's proprietary information." Darius pulled out his phone and opened the voice recording app he'd been using to dictate design notes during his late-night sessions. "That's strange. Because I have recordings of myself working through that exact problem 3 weeks ago, time-stamped recording. The room fell silent. Webb's eyes narrowed as he looked between Tom and Darius. Furthermore, Darius continued, his voice gaining strength, I have the original design files on my computer, with creation dates going back 8 months. I also have my handwritten notes, my preliminary sketches, and security camera footage showing me working on this project after hours for the past 6 months. Tom's face had gone completely white. You can't prove... Actually, I can. Darius walked to his desk and retrieved a thick folder from his locked drawer. Complete design documentation, including the failed attempts and dead-end approaches that led to the final solution. Every calculation, every revision, every breakthrough moment is documented. Webb snatched the folder from Darius's hands, his expression thunderous. As he flipped through pages of meticulous documentation, his jaw tightened progressively. Mitchell, you want to explain to me how Chen's signature is on design notes dated 3 months before you claim to have started this project? The confrontation that followed was swift and brutal. Tom's stammered explanations crumbled under scrutiny. Security footage confirmed Darius's claims. Within an hour, Tom was escorted from the building. His career at Meridian Motors terminated for intellectual property theft. But the real transformation began 3 days later, when Darius found himself sitting across from Sarah Chen, Meridian's chief technology officer, in the executive conference room. Your engine design is remarkable, she said, studying the complete technical specifications. But what impresses me more is your dedication and integrity. You could have let this slide, kept quiet, avoided the confrontation. She paused, her expression thoughtful. I know it hasn't been easy for you here. I've heard the comments, seen the way you've been treated. As someone who's also faced similar challenges in this industry, I recognize courage when I see it. I couldn't let it slide, Darius replied simply. This work represents everything I believe about engineering, innovation, precision, ethical practice. I couldn't let someone else claim it, especially not someone who clearly thought I was too foreign to create something this sophisticated. Sarah smiled. We've been looking for someone to head up our new advanced propulsion laboratory, someone with vision, technical expertise, and the courage to fight for their ideas. The position comes with a significant salary increase, a budget for cutting-edge research, and a team of 12 engineers reporting to you. Darius felt his heart skip a beat. You're offering me a laboratory? I'm offering you the chance to change the automotive industry, Sarah corrected. Your hybrid engine is just the beginning. We want you to imagine what transportation will look like in 20 years, then build it. 6 months later, Dr. Darius Chin stood in his state-of-the-art laboratory, watching his team of brilliant engineers work on the next generation of his revolutionary engine design. The prototype had exceeded all performance expectations during testing, and 3 major automotive manufacturers were already negotiating licensing deals. The young engineer, who had once felt invisible, now led the most innovative department at Meridian Motors. His hybrid engine was being fast-tracked for production, with the first vehicles expected to roll off assembly lines within 18 months. But the real victory wasn't the recognition or the success. It was the knowledge that he had found his voice, stood up for his principles, and proven that innovation and integrity could triumph over politics and prejudice. As he reviewed the latest test results, Darius smiled. The engine of change hadn't just been his revolutionary design. It had been the courage to speak truth to power, to demand recognition for his work, and to never again accept being underestimated. His ideas were no longer ignored, his qualifications were no longer questioned, and his future was limited only by the boundaries of his imagination.